embassy, because some of the things that would have to be done in order to do that include talking to Congress.
No, you're right. I was thinking about the role of the peace process, whether one of the challenges of moving the embassy would have a political consequence of making it impossible for the U.S. to mediate in a peace process. Does he feel that that is a possible challenge?
Well, I think the Secretary addressed this previously last week on his European trip, and the President addressed it as well. And they've both said similar things in that when we look at the peace process over the past many decades, we have not really, despite the efforts and despite all the good work of many administrations, Republican and Democrat, have failed to make changes to the situation over there. And so the president looks at this as a new way of potentially being able to move the ball, to advance the ball, to try to get the Palestinians and Israelis to come together. So we're hard at work at that. We have not given up. We are still optimistic. We certainly know that some things can become complicating factors, but we look forward to sitting down and trying to advance the peace process.
Just to follow up on the embassy. Last week when we were in Europe, Secretary Tillerson said that the physical move of the embassy wouldn't be this year and probably not next year. This morning he said 3 years. I don't know whether something has changed over the weekend to prolong the process or whether they're just vague estimates. Does the Secretary intend that the physical move of the embassy should take place during President Trump's first term?
Well, look, I think the moving of the embassy will be done when it's ready. And that some of the things that have to be done include, talking to Congress about the money, taking a look at the most appropriate site for it. As you all know, security is extremely important. We have to take a look at all the security things that have to be factored into that site. Is this the right space for it? So a lot of that stuff is just frankly going to take time, and that's why the Secretary said it could take several years.
Those things the administration could have considered before making a decision to move the embassy.
Well, look, I suppose so, but here's where we are now. The president made his decision, and now we're taking the position that we need to look at what the next steps are.
The 3-year estimate this morning is where we are, though, in terms of approximately.
That is a number that I have heard discussed around here. So I think it would be fair, Dave, just to state that is a number that we are looking at. It could take longer. It could take less time.
Just some very tight, quick ones. Is today Secretary Tillerson's senior communications advisor, R.C. Hammond's last day?
Yes.
Okay. In a December the 1st New York Times article, 3 administration officials are cited as saying that he'll be leaving soon. I think it said in the next couple of weeks. And he said that was wrong, that he was not leaving soon. What changed? He, Mr. Hammond, on the record said that.
I see.
What changed? And in the intervening 8 or 9 days, because I think the Pool report said on Friday that he was leaving on the 12th, and you've just confirmed it. So what changed in that period between December 1 and today that he wasn't leaving, and he said he wasn't, and now he is leaving?
I would just have to refer you back to him. I'm sorry. You certainly know how to reach him. I'm not going to speak about somebody's personal career plan. So I'd have to refer you to.
Was he fired in the intervening time?
I'm not going to comment on his career. He served this administration for about a year now, and I'll just have to refer you to him on that.
Syria?
Okay. Let's go to Syria.
According to Robin Wright in the New Yorker, you've reconciled yourself to Bashar al-Assad's remaining in office until the next Syrian elections in 2021. Because there aren't many other options now, and in fairness to you, this was really set by the previous administration, and it's evidenced by Matt Lee's repeated interrogations of John Kirby. So, I mean, is what she wrote basically correct? Can you confirm it?
I would say her reporting's off the mark.
Off the
mark. We remain committed to the Geneva process. We believe that the future of Syria will not include Bashar al-Assad, but that is ultimately up to the Syrian people and the Syrian voters to decide. It could take a period of time before the Syrian people are able to get to the process by which they can actually turn out to vote. We've talked about this a little bit before, trying to include the diaspora in that voting. We remain committed to the Geneva process. Russia has said that it would help bring the regime to the Geneva process. They did part of that For a time, they chose to leave while the opposition stayed. We noticed that and thought that was a very good thing that the opposition stayed during some of the Geneva talks that just took place over the past few days. We expect that Russia will continue to try to bring the regime to the table, but the Geneva process is something we stand firmly behind.
Do you have a time frame in mind for this?
Look, I think we are still at the place where U.S.-backed organizations and coalition-backed organizations are removing rubble. We're still involved in the demining process, so I'm afraid we're just not there to the electoral process just yet, but we're having a lot of conversations with the UN and other like-minded countries about the importance of the Geneva process.
Can you comment on the withdrawal of Russian forces?
Well, in her story, she said that the U.S. had accepted that Assad will be in power until 2021. We've not accepted anything of the sort. It could take some time, but we've not just accepted that. And by the way, it's not up for the United States to ultimately decide. That is up to the Syrian people.
I wanted to ask if you have any
goal or idea.
Not that I have seen. In talking with all of our experts on ISIS and in Near Eastern affairs, no one here has seen that number in paper or spoken about.
Okay. The withdrawal of Russian forces from Syria yesterday, as was announced by President Putin. First, do you have a comment? And second, was this in any way, did you know in advance that the Russians were moving their troops out of Syria?
No, I can't.
A number of their troops.
I can't speak to any alleged Russian troop movements, so I'd have to refer you back to the government of Russia on that one. But it's interesting. Russia may consider its job in Syria to be done. Right. Our job in Syria is not done. And when I say our, I don't just mean the United States, I mean the entire coalition. There are still pockets of ISIS. The country still needs to be stabilized. We were just talking about rubble removal, and we were talking about demining. If Russia chooses to pull out, it certainly, that is its choice to do so. But we continue to work through all our partners to try to stabilize the country.
So if the job is not done, as you don't consider it done,
the job is not done. It's not done in Iraq, even though Iraq has declared victory over ISIS. It's still not done there because there are still individuals there who belong to ISIS who will take part undoubtedly in terrorist activities. Syria, the job is far from done there, unfortunately.
Is the expectation that the United States will continue to have a presence there in military terms? I mean, it has like 2,000 personnel. Is it likely to increase?
I can't comment on the number of U.S. personnel there. That would be under the Department of Defense. But the job is not done yet. There's a lot of work left to be done in Syria. We wish that weren't the case, but it is the case, and we've made a lot of progress in this. And again, when I say we, I don't mean the United States. I mean the entire coalition has made a lot of progress, but it's not finished yet. Hey, John.
I wanted to follow up on the Trump administration's rejection of a Russian proposal on non-interference in each other's internal affairs. Are there any things that Russia can do so that the United States might reconsider a non-interference agreement, given concerns about potential meddling in light of the 2018 midterms being on the horizon?
Yeah, it's funny that some are indicating that we rejected a deal with Russia and that's a bad thing that we rejected the deal. Let me remind you that Russia is not an honest broker when it comes to deals. I can point to a few things from INF treaties, which they are not in compliance with, but yet they are supposed to be. Okay, that's one example of an area that they can't, they're not holding up their end of the bargain. Minsk, that's another area. Anti-doping, that is another area. So Russia has a history of this. So I think I would be very skeptical when Russia comes to you, when Russia comes to the United States saying, okay, here's our agreement. I'm not certain it's worth the paper that it's actually printed on. So I'd be very suspicious of any kind of deal, any kind of story that says, oh, Russia, they wanted you to agree to this, but bad America wouldn't agree to it. They have a record of the non-compliance with the INF I just mentioned on arms control, other key agreements, a failure to honor commitments on Minsk, denials of its ongoing support of violence in eastern Ukraine. We haven't talked about this in an awful long time. The cover-up of the shoot-down of MH17, which happened over eastern Ukraine back in, 2015 or so? The denials of interference in our elections. So I find their claims to just be laughable.
Yeah, okay. and I take your point on those. it sounds like, given that rundown, that there is quite a low level of trust, and we probably shouldn't expect an array of new sort of agreements between the U.S. and Russia. Is that right?
I'm not going to forecast any potential agreements, but I'm just saying on that one matter that you asked me about, I think we'd be pretty suspicious about signing anything. Okay.
Early on the Bad America soundbite, which will be probably very popular in certain parts of the world.
It might be. We've got to get moving on pretty quickly. Hi, Marcin, how are you? Wait, hold on. Let me go to our friend Marcin back in there from Poland. Hi.
Thank you, Heather. There have been quite a lot of changes in Poland recently, in